When we start to hear certain people say like, do what you want with my body, you know what I'm saying? Nothing matters, everything's pointless, you know what I'm saying? You can't really hurt me. So understand this, is the thing is that you created the position that you're in as far as the way you perceive it as a debauchery, regardless if you see it as nothing exists outside of you or nothing's happening. Life is meaningless or pointless. See, what's real are the experiences. However, at the end of the day, though, there's always cycles being repeated. How do you break that cycle, though? You know what I'm saying? How do you break that cycle? Because we start to talk about certain infestations that we may have in a garden. How do you interrupt that life cycle, right? You could do it organically or you could do it inorganically. You see, you could do it with pesticides and you'll break a life cycle, or you could just let it happen organically, where you basically allow the predatory bugs to come in and create balance. See, just like your body, everything outside of you is always trying to find that homeostasis, which is basically balance. We're the only ones that go extreme. We go into polarities and start to use things and think that, just like when you get certain symptoms that you may get, like a fever or whatnot, or like anything that doesn't feel comfortable, you want to suppress that when it's just part of nature, finding that homeostasis. You polarize. You don't work with the body because you polarize to an acidic condition, and your body robs calcium from the body to actually utilize it to create balance, to create homeostasis. So it uses the calcium as a buffering agent. All right. So now when you start to see how the body starts to use things in a way where it has to rob from something just to maintain balance, is because who's creating that imbalance to begin with, right? It's the one that's God, you know what I'm saying? The God who fell asleep is basically creating the imbalance in the body. So the body has to correct itself at all times. So your body's always detoxing. It's not just doing it, when you're sick. It's always doing it. It's just that when there's an agglomeration or too much of an accumulation, then the body will have to go to extreme measures. This is the time it has to get extreme to expel and purge things out of your system. So it's going to do it in a violent way. It's going to force you to stand down and chill the fuck out. Right? So now I want to explain something when it comes to the body is everything. And why I say the body is everything is, first of all, because of your body, you're experiencing this world that you see as a whole, including the planets that you're physically able to observe with technology, or even without it, where you could clearly see like Mars or whatnot with the naked eye at nighttime, if you're able to spot, that star correctly. But, look at it like this, though. Your body is an animal. And there's something called the animal kingdom. When you observe these animals in nature, all right, these animals are a reflection of your primitive nature. Okay? And in the Bible it said, God brought forth all the creeping creatures of the planet, all the fowl or birds of the air and the fish of the sea, and man has dominion over all living things on the planet. Now the word dominion means rulership or control over these animals, right? So this is what makes you the God of these animals or nature. However, when you look at the word God, it is not where you say you're better than these animals, okay? What makes you different or better than these animals is the level of consciousness, but your body is no different than these animals in the wild. You're supposed to be able to interact with these animals on a telepathic level, like Beastmaster. When you go into nature, what's funny is that you're not the main appetizing dish for these animals. You can go into the woods and see a wolf. A wolf avoids humans at all times. Lions even, they don't want to eat you. They'd rather eat wild prey. The same thing, a killer whale would rather eat seals than eat a human. Why is that? Or do they recognize you as God? Or are they evolved to the point that they see you as something that would actually de-evolve them if they ate you? Because the whole thing is, you are what you eat. And some people are in such a level of unconsciousness that I believe these animals actually have more of an awareness than you have. Like a child when they're born. A child has way more advancements than you have as an adult. And then when we start programming, indoctrinating them, talking to them with language, and then aside from that, vaccinating them and putting them in these inorganic systems, they slowly but surely, right, de-evolve from their natural state. So that's why they say your child are your parents, right? But you're supposed to guide your child, not take control of your child. Your child has just as much rights and just as much rights as you do, right? But why do we take so much control over them? Why do we treat them sometimes with, I would say, not in a level where we would consider it equal to you? You say, I'm the authority, you listen to me, you don't question me. You see, because certain times these things are things that kids hear from their parents, right? And the kids look at you as God. But they look at you as God because you shelter them, give them light, give them warmth, give them love, right? Give them comfort, right? And then they look up to you for that reason. But they're no different than you. They have the same rights as you do. And sometimes, you know, when it comes down to discipline, it should be done with love. However, that's something that goes deep because we don't understand what love is at times. And love is really guiding and building. That's basically love, is harmony. And when you look at nature, everything in nature is love. It's harmony. Natural. It's neutral. So the same way, if you are home and in your heart and you're observing your reality, that's why there's a difference between saying I am neutral or heartless. Like a heartless person would basically be disconnected with themselves. And they're operating on, it's not neutrality, but that's a complete and total disconnect of self. So you have absolutely no compassion for anything or anybody outside of you. These animals have just as much rights as you do. They're more likely more evolved than you are. Same way with the trees. Yet we, as having dominion over them, we are mistreating them by cutting trees down, using animals in inorganic systems to entertain us, like in the zoos, the way that they're killed in farms, right? And see, here's the thing though, why would an animal not want to eat a human? Because the same way that if you really know better and you wouldn't eat an animal as a human because of, you know that you have to, you would have to actually, the body would have to process not only just the complex molecules to pull apart to utilize this as information for the body, but it's processing these emotions that this animal went through if it didn't go through a favorable life or experience. For example, where, you know, it's been shown that animals show emotions toward, you know, having their youngs taken away from them. They show emotions toward, like cows, for example, when somebody dies in the house, they shed a tear for you and they cry. See, these human level emotions, you get what I'm saying? These complex emotions from these animals is something that we have to process. However, we're not killing these animals in their survival state. And we're not doing it in a one-shot kill. You know, there's a big difference between slaughtering these animals and the way they're killed to, let's say if you were killing them, let's say if it was a one-shot kill. That's why most of the time when an animal dies in a certain way, they release a certain hormone in the muscle or in the blood that's actually toxic to humans. If they die in a fearful state, which has me questioning, is it beneficial for a human to die in fear or not understanding death to some extent? You know? And the reason I even say this is because when we start to look at these pyramids, we're sold a story that these were tombs for pharaohs and whatnot. I mean, the pyramids are your body as well. Because when you go to these pyramids, you go in there, you're taking selfies, and you're just in there, and you don't even ask these questions. You take for granted the fact that these pyramids, just be present as possible and ask yourself, just have this moment, this surreal moment to say, we cannot replicate this. The technology that we have now where I'm standing right now, this structure cannot be replicated. So you're inside these pyramids, knowing that they cannot be aligned with the constellation of the stars. They cannot be replicated in a sense where these stones could be constructed in a certain way. And then we ask ourselves, well, what are these designs for? What is all this for? There's still so much mysteries behind them. But we look at that as a reflection of us. How is your body designed? The moment you could start to ponder upon this in particular, just ponder on how you started, how you are created, what started this whole thing that we're experiencing right now. Because I made the video about what created your environment. From the moment you're in your mom's womb, your environment was created from the womb when you're in your mother's womb, and everything's being programmed and downloaded into your organic computer. Now, when you come out, right, you know all this, but you're no different than an animal. You just can't express your emotions. You can't express with intellect or logic where you are, where you were, or where you came from, you know? But you know more than the adults, but you can't express that. And then through time, you just forget, right? You forget. The animals hibernate. They go through periods of dormancy in the wild. 6 months sometimes they go dormant. Their body temperature drops. They utilize fat as an insulation to keep them protected from, you know, the extreme environments. However, they're going through something called hibernation. You got reptiles that go through something called brumation. I mean, this is death, isn't it? It's death. So when they're experiencing death, and it happens in the winter, which is a more spiritual season, and then you got spring and summer, which are more like you're enjoying physical, like the fruits of your labor or whatnot. Okay? But are they even in their animal form when they are in this state of hibernation? Because even, let's say, for example, if you say you want to eat an animal, right? Because when you have, let's say if you ingest a plant, you may have certain spiritual experiences, right? Psychoactive effects. You have something called DMT, which is the death molecule, the spirit molecule. Okay, spirit molecule. Which can have you. You see, a lot of people, let's say they're so lost in this inorganic environment. Because I'm not advocating drugs. I'm making sure I make that disclaimer here. But the whole thing is that you could produce all these chemicals within you. You get what I'm saying? The whole thing is you're so far gone into this organic system that sometimes it requires you to go back to nature. And going back to nature would be to take this spirit molecule medicine. I don't even want to call it a drug. But a medicine to actually guide you back to nature. Notice how you can purge, right? And this purging process is no different than when you get sick. Where you're really not sick, you're actually healing. You were sick before you got sick, where we call sick. Because when you have a fever, when you have diarrhea or vomiting, you're technically healing. You were sick before you got all that. That's the reason you're going through a healing crisis. That's the reason why you're getting those symptoms. That's the body expelling shit. Which we should be happy that's happening. But instead we want to stop that by taking medications and whatnot. You know? To suppress those symptoms because they don't feel comfortable. When you take a spirit molecule, you may purge. You may have these experiences of purging, but that's basically the inorganic systems breaking down from within you. No different than you can do this with your mind. Basically, breaking down all the layers, going back to nature would be just stripping down what you would look at as the systems outside of you. You see, we sleep with these systems in this technology and we know nothing about them. But we know all about the inorganic government system, education system, religious systems, all these systems that actually, there's stagnation. See, belief systems. Religion holds a belief system. And it's a brainwashing belief system. Because if you try to talk to somebody about, alternative information when it comes down to religion, it's like you get something called cognitive dissonance. They're shut down. They close down to it. Right? So, this is why I believe that it's important to have an understanding of who and what you are and what's going on here. What happens when you take a psychedelic trip and you're not prepared for it? It's going to fuck you up. That's why you get preparations before you take these medicines. No sex, fasting, right? You may have to do a level of meditations, breath work, just to clear your space so that you can go in here a little more prepared. So what happens when you die? You're in search of light now because you never really put the attention toward yourself, to these systems. If I was to ask somebody about a specific system, they couldn't break down one system in detail in their body. The most important one, the lymphatic system, right? And I'm going to tell you right now, gardening alone has opened my eyes to many different avenues. And it's not just by research. It's realizations that just happen to occur. Whereas I'm gardening, I'm seeing so much correlation and connections between what's going on in a garden to what's happening in your body. Even hydration, temperature, how certain things need to maintain stability, like the soil. The soil needs to maintain stable homeostasis at all times. Because if it experiences extremities of whether it be too cold or too hot, then the microbiome gets compromised. But what's protecting that microbiome and protecting that soil from experiencing extreme conditions? A nice thick layer of mulch, right? And that mulch is kind of like the skin. Okay? So your skin, okay, is your first layer of defense. But it is also a very good indicator as to what's actually going on inside of you. If your skin looks all fucked up, then you know there's systems that are not imbalanced in you. You may have endocrine or hormonal issues. That's why you may break out. You may have psoriasis or cysts, which is basically telling you that your kidneys may be jacked up because this is your third kidney. So what's happening on your skin, you better believe your kidneys are experiencing the same thing. So when you go back to nature and you observe these animals, right? These animals may appear to be afraid of you, but that's a reflection of you. Because when you go into the wild and you see a wolf, you see a lion, a bear, or whatnot, most of the time why they attack humans is because you're in their habitat. And you look like an alien to them because you have no type of connection to them. We talk about us meeting aliens from outer space and how would we be able to communicate with them. Everything's a reflection. The reason that you experience that, as far as you not being able to communicate, can they speak alien? Does aliens speak languages? No. Animals in the wild don't speak language. But I could guarantee you they'll speak another type. Look, your dog, you have a communication with your dog that doesn't involve language most of the time. Most of the time you think that when you're speaking to your dog, they understand your words. They hear, that's all they understand. They're just listening to frequencies and sounds out of your mouth. And certain recognitions is what they're basically observing, is what they can remember what's coming out of your mouth. But they don't recognize language. They just hear sounds. They more sense your vibration and frequency. They know if you're mad because they feel your vibes. You know, that's how a kid is. A kid between the ages of 1 to 7 is feeling your vibes. They're absorbing their environment. Right? So it's your vibe around your child that affects their development. And it starts from the womb. So when you have animals in the wild, right? We say stupid things like, oh, you know, I killed a deer today. You know, it was crossing the road. You know, it got in my way. I feel bad. But here's the thing, though. Did it cross your path or did you cross the deer's path? See, the deer is walking in nature. It don't know what a road is. It don't know that it crossed a road. What the fuck is a road to a deer? It's just walking in nature. Now we say these little things when a person gets, you know, they cross the line. Oh, this person, yo, don't cross my path, bro. Don't cross, you know, oh, this person crossed the line. You see how we use these little things where people do this shit to you, but it's just not physically happening, but it's like a spirit or an energetic thing happening. That's why you got to observe even the little words we use and how they tie into what's actually really happening. So your body is basically what you're experiencing outside of yourself. So why take care of your body? Why take care of your body? If I'm looking at the animals in the wild, those animals are me. And they're more likely a more evolved species of me. I'm more evolved in an inorganic system. And I have no idea of the organic system. And it's such a total disconnect to myself that I'm able to, let's say, eat an animal, commit murder, and, consent to the way they were killed and just eat the animal anyway because I'm only worried about the survival of my body. This is why certain people kill. Why certain people have pedophilia, all that. Is the total disconnect with themselves. But instead of addressing the root cause of issues, we only address symptoms. That's how medicine works, with the pharmaceutical medicines. Instead of addressing problems, you address symptoms. So how are these symptoms addressed? Building more jail cells, right? Instead of addressing what the root cause of these things are. We build more jail cells. We build, more housing. Nothing wrong with none of these things. I mean, I'm just making that disclaimer, but we got to try to, you see, the way everything here is balanced, okay, which is your neutral God state, because that's what neutral is, natural, all right? We don't polarize. It's like even a religious person, let's say, a religious person. If they polarize to their religion to say, this is my idea of good, right? They're technically being something called a Satan, because if you look at the word Satan, Satan means adversary. So they don't realize that they're doing exactly what it is that they are going up against, being Satan. But what were you told Satan was? What's the first picture that comes into your mind when you hear the word Satan? Right? Opposer, adversary. But the first thing that comes into your mind is what you were taught in a religious book. I don't know. I hope I made myself clear with this. I know I went all over the place, but I'm going to cover some other points in another video, and we'll talk soon.